So first of all, thanks a lot, Venkatesh, for coming in on a weekend and helping out folks on a very interesting topic on cloud security. Uh, for folks on the call, Venkatesh is basically a cybersecurity expert, having worked in Cognizant in the past and currently working as a lead consultant at Atos. Um, has a BTech from NIT Trichy. Trichy, a local, and he's come here today to talk about a very interesting topic on cloud security. He's also a certified blockchain expert. Got his AWS certification also in security. Of course, GCP certified as well. So once again, welcome Venkatesh, and I will hand over the screen to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the warm introduction. All right, so let's get started. I hope you're recording this.
We are.
Okay, no problem. All right. So first of all, very good afternoon to all of you who have taken time from your weekend to join and learn about cloud security. Uh, uh, Thank you. So let's get started with today's session on cloud security. Okay. So what we are going to cover in today's topic is what is cloud computing, what are the different models that are there in cloud, what are the different trends that we see in cloud computing, and what is cloud security, what does it mean, what are the different components that are there in cloud security, and what are the different native cloud security controls that are being offered by the major hyperscalers or the major cloud service providers, right? So these are the topic that I want to cover at a high level. So this is a very, very high level introductory section. So I will keep it light and I will keep it entertaining for you to understand these concepts. And at any point in time, if you have a question, please put your questions in the chat window. We'll definitely go through the questions and then we'll answer those questions. And as was pointed out moments ago, we definitely have a dedicated time available for Q&A. So we'll definitely try to address all of your questions for sure. Okay. I think I've already been introduced, but anyways, I will reiterate just quickly. I was born and brought up in Trichy. I have a BTech Civil from NIT Trichy. I've worked only in 2 companies so far. One is Cognizant, where I worked for 10 years, and I'm currently working in Atos for the past 6 years. I have 3 major cloud certifications and 1 blockchain certification. Right. So now let's get into the session without further ado. Right. So what is cloud computing? Right. So before you can understand cloud security, right? You need to understand what is cloud. You also need to understand what is security. Only when you understand what is cloud and what is security, you'll be able to understand what is cloud security, right? So let's look at what is cloud, right? So we have an official definition from a standards body called National Institute of Standards and Technology in United States. They are defining cloud computing as a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, right? Here, computing resources could mean network, server, storage, applications, services, anything, right? That can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal effort, or released with minimal management effort from the cloud consumer or from the service provider interaction perspective, right? I'll explain this a little bit detail as we go through, right? So the cloud model as defined by NIST consists of 3 major categories, right? Like, so it should have 5 essential characteristics, and it is available in 3 service models and 4 deployment models. We'll look at what these are, right? So the essential characteristics for a cloud is that it should be a on-demand self-service based mechanism, right? So you should be able to log into a website like a cloud console. You should be able to request a cloud resource, or you should be able to request a compute resource on demand without any restriction, right? Then the second essential characteristic is that it should provide you broad network access, right? So you should be able to have a controlled network. You should be able to connect to internet. So you should be able to connect to different locations and be able to provide service to different locations and so on, right? The third one is resource pooling. If you look at what essentially cloud is cloud is nothing but a huge data center that is pooled for use by multiple people, right? So you build a huge gigantic data center and you share the resources that are available in the data center to multiple people to use or multiple organization to use. That is called resource pooling, right? So what these cloud providers do is they build huge data centers, right, with a lot of space for storing your compute resources, and then they virtualize those resources and then share those resources among multiple people, right? The fourth essential characteristics is rapid elasticity, right, which means you should be able to scale up or scale down very rapidly, right, depending upon your need. So if you want like 10 servers right now, you should be able to spin up 10 servers in, like, let's say half an hour's time or 1 hour's time, right? So it should have the capacity to do it, and at the same time it should be able to scale up and down rapidly, right? And then finally, the most important characteristics of all is the measured service, right? It should be highly available, right? That is very, very important. It doesn't matter if you're able to provide a computer, but if the website or the computer goes down frequently, then there is no use for it, right? So you should have a very highly reliable, highly available service. So that is called measured service, right? So these are the 5 essential characteristics that any cloud environment should have. Okay. Now we have 3 different service models. Okay. One is called software as a service. The second one is called platform as a service. And the foundational one is called infrastructure as a service. Okay. What these are, we will cover in the next slide. So please bear with me for some time. Then we'll move on to the deployment models, right? So in deployment models, what you see is you have 4 different deployment models, such as private cloud, public cloud, community cloud, and hybrid cloud, right? So private cloud is nothing but your on-premise data center. Like you are an organization, let's say you work for an organization that has a data center where they have a bunch of resources available for their company to operate on, right? That can be considered as a private cloud or on-prem, right? Public cloud is where you have major hyperscalers like AWS or Azure or Google, who are providing computing services for the masses to consume. Okay. That is public cloud. Community cloud is where you have a specialized cloud for a specific purpose. For example, there are a lot of organizations who offer government cloud. Okay, which means all the government organization will deploy the resources on that particular cloud environment. They'll not use either private cloud or public cloud, right? Something like that. And the most common use case is hybrid cloud environment, where people use a combination of public cloud and private cloud. Okay, so that is the most common use case that we currently see today. All right. So don't, if this feels a little bit overwhelming for you initially, please bear with me for some time. We'll definitely go through this in detail, and we have a demo as well. I'll walk you through Google Cloud Platform, and I'll show you how things are done, just to introduce you to the concepts, right? And then we'll see how it works. Okay. 1 minute. I think I have a question. So any questions here from anyone? Yeah, so if you have any questions, anybody has any questions, please put it in the chat window. We'll try to address them. Okay. I don't think we have any questions so far. But if there are any questions in this slide, please put it down here, and then I'll try to address it. Mukul, I see that you raised your hand. So please put your question here, and we will discuss your question. All right. So, okay, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat window now. Let me take a look at it. Okay, are you not able to hear my voice?
No, we can hear you, Venkatesh, loud and clear.
Okay, okay. All right.
Yeah, so we are starting to get some questions. We will
Okay.
pick it up at the end.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. No problem. Okay. Now we talked about service models, right? Like, so these three models, right? So let's look at what these service models are in detail, right? So the first one, the foundational one that I had talked about is infrastructure as a service, right? So in infrastructure as a service, what happens is cloud provider will take care of certain elements of your infrastructure, and then you as a cloud consumer will take care of certain elements of your infrastructure, right? So when it comes to infrastructure as a service, what you do is you move to it. So basically, if you have, let's say, physical servers available in your on-premise data center, or virtual servers available in your on-premise data center, what you do is you basically take those virtual servers or physical servers, you just copy the content to the cloud server by creating a replica of the server in the cloud environment, right? So that is what move to it means. So in infrastructure as a service model, what happens is the physical computer in which you run the server, right, will be taken care by the cloud provider. Here, cloud provider means AWS or Google or Azure or anybody, right? So they will provide networking, they will provide servers, they will provide storage, they will provide virtualization, right? So they will provide all these capabilities to you as a cloud consumer. So here customer means cloud consumer, whoever is consuming the services of the cloud, right? So what you will be responsible for will be for the operating system that you install on the virtual server that you create, any middleware that you need, any runtime environment that you need, any data that you create or store, and any application that you deploy or use. You will be responsible for all these activities. What the cloud provider will do is they will provide only the underlying virtualized server storage and networking. Okay. Now, if you move to platform as a service, what you do is you build with platform as a service, right? So in this, what happens is the cloud provider will take more responsibility, and then you will take less responsibility, right? So what happens is when you need an environment, you tell the cloud provider, hey, can you give me a web server that is running Apache and Nginx and with the Java runtime of version something and so on, right? Whatever specific requirements you have, you will tell them that, okay, hey, I need a platform with this configuration, right? So then what they will do is they'll take care of running the operating system, which could be your Red Hat Linux or SUSE Linux or Windows server, and whatever middleware you need, right? Like you could need IIS or Apache or Nginx or IBM WebSphere or any of those middleware architecture that you have, right? So you can tell what you want, what runtime and what middleware you want. So the cloud provider will manage that for you, right? All you need to do is you need to just deploy your applications on it, and then you manage the data that you generate and store. That is what you typically do, right? Now, the third model is software as a service, right? In which the entire stack is taken for, like the entire responsibility is taken by the cloud service provider. Okay, so the best example for SaaS is the applications that we use in online world today, right? So some of you must be using emails from let's say Google or Microsoft or Yahoo or something, right? So what they provide is software as a service for you, right? Like you can't control any of these in that particular application, right? So all you can do is you can log into the application, you can send an email, receive email, configure your settings and so on and so forth, but you cannot change the functionality of the email application. You cannot change the hardware in which the email software is running, right? So that is the best example of a SaaS. So there are many applications that are available in software as a service model. The best example is email, something like Gmail or Outlook.com, right? Where you consume the application as is, where you don't control any of the things that go in. All you can do is you can log in, you can send the email, receive email. So you can configure the application, you can use the application, but you cannot change the application, right? And the best application and the best platform as a service example could be people who provide Docker containers and Kubernetes clusters for you to deploy your application, containerized applications, right? Where they take care of all the underlying technology stack, and you manage your application, or you deploy your application and then you run your application. Infrastructure as a service is pretty much your on-premise setup, but you're running it inside a cloud environment, public cloud environment, right? So that's the bottom line. So that is what these three essential service models mean, right? So the security of cloud entirely depends on what kind of model you are using, and the responsibility of security will vary depending upon the model you choose, right? So that's why I'm spending a significant amount of time in explaining this to you, so that you're able to understand what are these three different service models mean. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, now let's move to some of the major trends in cloud computing, right? So what we see is happening is that many organizations are moving to a multi-cloud hybrid cloud model, right? So multi-cloud is where you use more than one cloud service provider like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud to host your applications and tools and things like that. And hybrid cloud is when you use your public cloud plus your on-prem data center or your private cloud together to deliver services, right? So that is what is the public cloud hybrid cloud environment is. Okay. And we see a lot of customers moving towards this, and that is what we see, right? And this trend has been recognized by the cloud providers themselves. So what they are doing is they are providing Azure Arc, okay, or Google Anthos. These are multi-cloud management platforms, right? Like, so using these platforms, you can manage and deploy resources in multi-cloud environment or hybrid cloud environment. So the cloud providers themselves are recognizing this trend, and they are enabling the customers to use these capabilities and features. Okay. The second major trend that we see is there is a lot of adoption of containerization and microservices technology and serverless technology, right? What serverless means is that you don't have to worry about managing the server. Instead, the cloud provider will manage the service for you. All you have to do is just tell what application needs to be run or what service needs to be run. The cloud provider will automatically scale up and down depending upon the demand on the system, right? So that is typically at a high level what serverless means, right? Serverless means doesn't mean that there is no server. Obviously there is a server. Instead of you managing the server, you hand over the responsibility of managing the environment to the cloud provider. So that is serverless, right? So that is why I am telling you, we have a lot of increased adoption for platform as a service, function as a service, container as a service, and then software as a service models, right? So people want to kind of use the application, configure the application instead of building or making a lot of changes to the application, right? And this is evident from the fact that the total market cap of the companies, right? Like, so for example, these are the top 10 companies. Their total market cap is $5.21 trillion, right? If you compare it with the market cap of the top 10 banks in the world, that is only $4.81 trillion. This clearly shows how much value that the industry is assigning to the cloud service providers, because these guys are essentially running the world's business, right? Most of the world's business is running on these cloud platforms now. Okay, these are the major players in the cloud. You have AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Alibaba Cloud in China. You have IBM Cloud. You have Salesforce. You have Tencent Cloud again from China, and then you also have Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, right? So these are the major cloud providers, and their market cap, if you take it, it is $5.21 trillion compared against 4.81 for the top 10 banks in the world, right? Then the third trend that we are seeing is automation. People are going for higher degree of automation in everything that they do, in development, in testing, in deployment, in monitoring, in security. Everywhere, automation is the key, right? So what they want to do is they want to automate the tasks so that we are able to do things faster, and at the same time eliminate mistakes that typically humans make, right? So that is what they are trying to do. So as a part of that, what we see is people are moving towards infrastructure as code. Most of these cloud providers do support infrastructure as a code. So you can create infrastructure by writing code, right? You write API calls, or you write a piece of code that when you pass it on to the Google Cloud or any other cloud provider for that matter, they will provision the environment based on what you described in your infrastructure as a code, right? The second thing that we see is DevSecOps. There is a major focus on DevSecOps. DevSecOps stands for Development Security Operations, right? So as people develop the application, we want to ensure that we don't make any security mistakes during the development or the build phase. And then we test it before we launch it into production, right? So, and this happens on a continuous basis in an automated fashion. So if you think of, say, for example, a company like Netflix or Google or Amazon, right? These people ship code, like they build functionalities and they release new functionalities to the production environment almost every half an hour to 1 hour, right? You cannot do manual testing at this scale, right? So you have to have a high degree of automation. So that is where your automated testing, continuous testing comes into play. And security is also a core part of it. So that is why it is now being called DevSecOps, right? Where you embed security in both development and operations. Okay, what is DevSecOps? How we do it is something that we will cover in detail later in this session. Okay, so please bear with me for some time, and then we'll go from there. And the last major trend that we see is configure versus customize, right? So people want to configure the application, like just use a software as a service application like Gmail, instead of you creating your own email server, managing your own email server, right? All of us use Gmail or Yahoo or Outlook.com, even though the server is on somebody else's side, and you use a very common email address, right? If you want, say for example, if I take my name as example, right, I can have a domain, or I can have an email address, something like venkatesh@venkatesh.com, right? But instead, what I have is venkatesh@gmail.com, right? So why I do that? Because running and managing a server is a tedious task for email server, right? So I am okay to bargain and trade off that for ease of access. So I am using venkatesh@gmail.com as my email address, where gmail.com is run by Google, and I just use their technology. Okay, so that is what we are doing. So that's exactly what configure versus customize is. So people want to just configure, and they want to minimize the effort required in customizing the application or building the application. Right now, coming to cloud security, right? So we talked about what are the different service models available in cloud, right? When it comes to cloud security is always a shared responsibility model. Okay, so you have 1 minute. Did somebody annotate?
No, I think it's from the previous slide, Venkatesh. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I thought it was some issue on my monitor or something, but then I realized there's something there. Okay. So, okay, fine. All right. So when it comes to cloud security model, right? Like, so it is always a shared responsibility between the cloud provider and the cloud consumer or the customer, right? So as I told you, in any environment, okay, you have these different elements, right? So starting from physical security, you have data center. Physical security means the place where you run your office or where you run your data center. Then you have your data center itself, right? Then you have networks that are running, storage, servers, virtualization, you have operating system, then you have database, middleware, runtime, application, and so on and so forth, right? So all these elements are there irrespective of where you're going to do your compute from, whether you're doing it on premises, whether you're doing it in cloud, right? Where it varies is if you are doing this in on-prem or a private cloud, you as a customer is responsible for all of this. You are responsible for the security of all of these elements. Okay. Whereas if you go to infrastructure as a service, right? What cloud service provider will do is they will take care of the physical security and the data center security for themselves. Okay. And the upper stack, like for example, network, storage, server, virtualization, and the operating system, you are responsible for the security of it. Okay. There's a shared degree of responsibility between the cloud provider and the cloud customer. They will secure certain elements of it, and you will have to secure certain elements of it. Okay. And the rest of the stack that you see on the top, it is still the responsibility of the end user or the customer. Okay. But when it comes to platform as a service, some more additional things that the cloud provider will take care of the responsibility in terms of security, right? So whatever you see in the gray is security of the cloud itself, right? Your cloud provides your server, storage, networking, and things like that. So that is your security of the cloud, right? But once you have the server, what do you store in the server? How do you store it in the server? Is security in the cloud. Okay, you are responsible for security in the cloud. When I say you, I mean the organization who's taking the services of the cloud from a cloud provider. Okay, so imagine you are the employee of a customer of a let's say a bank or a telecom company or something, right? If you are going to use services of the cloud provider, the bank or the telecom company is the customer here. Okay, so the bank is responsible for these elements. If it is platform as a service, what happens is the responsibility shifts to the cloud service provider, and then the shared responsibility goes up the stack, and then still there are significant amount of element for which you are responsible for security. In software as a service, majority of the security is taken care by the cloud service provider. Okay, and there is very minimal shared responsibility, and there are still a few areas where you are responsible for security, right? No matter whatever type of application or whatever engagement model or service model you are using, the top four items, right? Identity and access, as to who get access to what resource or application and what level of access they should get, is still the responsibility of the customer. The governance, risk, compliance of the cloud assets and resources is still your responsibility. Configuring the security of the applications in your control is still the customer's responsibility. Making sure that every security policy is being implemented properly by form of audit is still the responsibility of the customer. Okay, and whatever data and metadata that you create is still the responsibility of the customer. So this is the only, if you're taking just one thing from this slide, this is exactly what I want you to remember. Okay, the first four boxes: identity access, the governance, risk, compliance, audit, data and metadata, will always be the responsibility of the customer. Okay. Okay, so let's see if you have any questions. I have one question on certification. We'll address it later. Okay, we have. Okay. Okay, there is one on career, nothing on technical. Okay, fine, no problem. Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk about cloud security. This is very, very important. You have to understand this very clearly if you really want to become a successful cloud security engineer, right? Unless you understand this shared responsibility model and the service model which drives the shared responsibility model, it will be very difficult for you to succeed in your career. Okay, so this is a very, very important slide. That's why this is the very first slide that I am introducing to you as part of cloud security. Okay. Now moving to the major cloud security trends. Okay, is that as I told you, infrastructure as a code, right? Where people are moving towards creating environments or deploying environments by creating code and then running the code to build the environment, right? So you might come across tools like these, like Terraform, Chef, Ansible, etc., to create infrastructure as a code, right? So what you need to do is, because you're going to create infrastructure, it is a lot easier to check for the security vulnerabilities in the code before you actually create the environment, right? So a lot of people are going towards infrastructure as a code and securing the infrastructure as a code, like making sure that you create a secure baseline, you create a secure image template and things like that to deploy your code, is one of the key major trends that most of the customers are using right now, right? The other important, this is foundational, right? And then the other important thing is DevSecOps, as I talked to you about, right? So you have your development phase, right? So where you build, develop, test. So this is one cycle that you keep doing, right? And then once you have built sufficient functionality, what you do is you plan to release the functionality into production, right? So once you put it into production, you have to deploy the changes in production, you have to operate the application, and then you have to monitor the application. So this is another cycle: deploy, operate, monitor. So this is your ops cycle, this is your dev cycle. Okay. I'm sure you would have studied about these things in your college or in your current organization. I'm just reiterating this point so that you, those who are not familiar, can get familiar with this, right? So this is your dev cycle, this is your ops cycle, and the security is all about ensuring that the entire dev and the ops operations are secure, right? And you can see some of the activities that we do typically from a security perspective in each of these phases, right? So for example, when you do planning, you do threat modeling. When you develop, you do secure coding practice, right? And then security as code, like when you develop infrastructure as code, you have to ensure that security is embedded in it, right? When you're developing a end application, like a mobile application or a web application, right? We do static application security testing, dynamic application security testing, right? To ensure that there are no security vulnerabilities in the application, typically OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities or other vulnerabilities, right? Like SANS top 50 and things like that. And before you release it into production, you do a penetration testing, and also you digitally sign the package that you want to release to the production to ensure that there is no tampering of the build or the software, right? Once you deliver, what you need to do is you need to securely transfer the file from your non-production environment to your production environment, right? And then you need to deploy, you need to do the security configuration, you need to run a periodic scan, you need to apply security patches, you will conduct security audits, you will run continuous security monitoring, right? And all the data that you collect from logs and events and alerts and things like that, you will run security analysis as well to try and see what's happening and if there is any breach or any problem that we need to address. So this is the ops cycle of it. So these are the activities that we do, and all of these activities are getting automated, and you as cloud security engineer need to enable all these activities. You may not be directly responsible for doing all these activities, but you will be part of the team that facilitates this process, right? So that's why this is very, very important for you to understand. If you want to understand more about this, you can read this fantastic PDF document from US Department of Defense Chief Information Office. They have given a very beautiful document on DevSecOps. Okay, I've just taken one gist or like one summary image from their document, and I've just called out here, and the link is there in this document itself. You can just refer to that. Okay. The next one is something called Secure Access Service Edge. Okay, this is a new area that is getting a lot of traction in the industry today, and you, as a cloud security engineer, you would definitely come across this term in the in your day job, right? So it consists of two major elements, as you can see here. Okay, Cloudflare is a leading cloud service provider, right? and they have summarized this, and it was a very nice summary. That's why I thought I'll use the diagram as is, right? So it consists of two major elements. One is network as a service, right? So you have your networking vendors, like people who provide networking gears like Cisco, Palo Alto, Checkpoint, F5, right? Where they provide networking products, right? Your routers, switches, firewalls, right? All of them have been converted into a software defined network functions, right? It's called the NFVs, network function virtualization, right? And then you also have network security as a service, where you have to ensure that you have security elements of the network is taken care. So that is something like firewall as a service, or cloud access security broker, or secure web gateway, zero trust network architecture, and domain name service, right? So these are certain elements that helps in securing the network. So your secure access service edge is a combination of these individual topics or skills, and combining them in an efficient way for people to use it as a single component, right? So this is gaining traction, and in 2 to 3 years time, I think this will be the major focus area for a lot of organizations. Okay. And if you are more interested in cloud security trends, okay, there is a good Gartner hype chart for cloud security. Okay, so this is the hype cycle for cloud security 2020, published by Gartner. Okay, you can look at what are the different topics or areas, and when they think it will become a plateau. Plateau means mainstream, right? So they have given the timeline here with the legend and different topics in cloud, right? So you can just look at this. If you just search for hype cycle cloud security 2020, you will get this image from the internet. Okay, you can definitely use this to understand a little bit more in detail. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, now coming to cloud security components. Okay, what are the different topics that we need to cover? The first one is cloud workload protection. Okay, so cloud workload protection is where you protect the computing resources on your cloud. It could be like your VMs or containers and things like that. Okay, the next area that we do is cloud security posture management. This is to do with monitoring. You continuously monitor what is the security status of all the assets that you have in your cloud environment, and then you monitor, and then you fix any issues that you find. Okay, that is cloud security posture management. I see each of these topic will take half an hour to 1 hour for me to explain. Okay, and I'm not going to explain each of these topic in detail in this session, but we'll definitely cover this in our upcoming sessions. Okay, the third topic is cloud access security broker, shortly called CASB, right? This is predominantly aimed at providing access to SaaS-based cloud applications like your Office 365, your Google Workspace or SharePoint, or your Workday platforms and things like that, right? So there are a lot of software as a service cloud solutions available. To control access to those cloud solutions, we deploy CASB solutions. Okay. Then the next thing that we have is cloud identity and access management. Number 4 and 5 are very closely related, right? The line item number 5 is something that Gartner coined this term, right? But end of the day, what it does is it ensures that we are providing access to the right people in the cloud environment, especially when you're using infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, right? Because cloud provides a lot of functionalities, there are a lot of levels of access that you have. Okay, for example, if you take AWS, right, you can have 2,500 individual permissions for multiple products that you have. Okay, so managing the permissions for a given user or a bunch of users across different countries and regions and assets can become very tedious. So the cloud identity and access management and cloud infrastructure entitlement manager helps you facilitate that process by automating it. Okay, The next topic is cloud encryption. Cloud encryption is where you encrypt the data that you store in the cloud environment, and you encrypt the data that you send to the cloud environment. So when it comes to data security, you need to secure the data at rest, which is when you store the data in storage. And then you should also secure the data in motion, which is when you send the data, when you send a request to an application, right? So like you're making a HTTPS call, or you're requesting an application to load or something like that, right? So then HTTPS request is sent, which means it is an encrypted request with the data, right? So that is cloud encryption. Then you have container security. As I told you, people are going for microservices and containerized architecture. So when you deploy containers or container orchestration platforms, you'll be running a lot of nodes, a lot of pods, and a lot of services on top of them. So you need to ensure that you have the right security controls in place in terms of access control, network control, and everything, right? So container security is a huge topic because most of the applications are now moving towards container-based application. So container security is a very key topic for us. Then we also have cloud network security, which is where your all your assets basically reside, right? So when you create a cloud environment, what they give you is a virtual cloud, virtual network, and then you deploy your resources on that particular environment. Okay, so you need to ensure that you have the right security controls in place for you to learn and do. Okay, so that is another important area for cloud network security. These are fundamental things. Okay, now if you look at the general theme that I've highlighted here, right? I'm talking about identity and access management. I'm talking about security monitoring. I'm talking about protecting the servers, which is your network security, infrastructure security, data loss prevention, antivirus, and things like that, right? So if you see the theme, this is nothing but the general cybersecurity that you have been doing in the on-prem environment. Okay. When it comes to cloud security, whatever cybersecurity activities that you did in your on-prem environment, you have to do everything in cloud. Okay. So if you had 10 topics, right? Like you might have seen the cybersecurity topics in the Antwerp platform, right? So you have 10 topics under cybersecurity, right? Out of 10 topics, the 8 topics that they are teaching you is applicable for cloud. Okay, that is how complex cloud security is, because cloud security is not just about security of the cloud only, right? It is about the entire infrastructure, your entire infrastructure that was living in an on-premise network, on-premise data center, and a dedicated office network is no longer there, and it is moving to a multi-cloud hybrid cloud model. So what you need to do is you need to take care of all the security principles, policies, and everything that you did. You have to apply it to cloud. That is why cloud security is a very niche area. Okay, and it is in very high demand. So cybersecurity is a very niche area. Cloud is a niche area. But if you combine cloud and security, that combination is a killer combination, and it is a niche of a niche. So if you are pursuing a career in cloud security, you have very high growth opportunities. I would strongly urge each one of you to take cloud security as a serious career option. Okay. Now coming to the native security controls that we have, right? So these are the 3 major cloud service providers, right? By default, they provide these security software or security controls that you can use to secure your application or environment or network or whatever you're doing, right? So I'm not going to read out each name. You can definitely read it and it will be available to you, I guess. So you can definitely read about it and then you can learn about it. Okay. This is the snapshot that we have at this point in time. Okay. If you check after 2 months, this list will increase because the cloud providers are adding lot of more features into the cloud environment. And at the same time, they're also adding a lot of security features also into the cloud environment. Okay. All right. So that's the native cloud security controls. Okay. Before I'm actually done with the session, before we move on to the Q&A, question and answer session, right? I just wanted to introduce the Antwerp experiential program for cybersecurity, right? So we have launched a cybersecurity Antwerp experiential program. This is a 16-week course, 12 weeks of core technical sessions and 4 weeks for soft skills and mentoring and then CP preparation, right? You have 10 plus renowned experts who will take the core and the soft skills. I'm just one among them, right? There are a lot of other industry leaders who are coming together to deliver this course for you. I'm one among them. I'll be doing the cloud security topic, right? And you have 40 plus live classes. There are a lot of pre-reads available in terms of Antwork original videos, and I'm sure some of the experts will share some other materials also with you that are available in the public domain for you to refer to, right? There are a lot of range of tools are available. You can get to do live projects, like you can get to do hands-on projects and you will be assessed based on the projects that you do, right? So this course is a very well-rounded course, well-constructed course. I think this would be a good value for you. And the registrations are now open. If you want, you can just click on the link that is available at the bottom using my referral code, right? So just click on this link and then you'll be taken to the website, right? So the topics that we are going to cover, there are 10 islands, 10 core topics in cybersecurity, right? The first one is cybersecurity and information security. Then you have network security, and you have attacks. Then you have web application security, and then the fifth island is incident management. Digital forensics, you have GRC, which I think you had a session masterclass, I think a few weeks ago or maybe last week. And then you have identity and access management and cloud security. This is the topic that I will be presenting in the experiential program. And then you also have cyber threat intelligence. And each of these topics will be presented by an expert who is an expert in that specific area, right? Say, for example, digital forensics, I am not an expert, right? Or GRC, I am not an expert. But cloud security is something that I know. So I will present cloud security. Similarly, you'll have an expert who is expert in GRC, who is an expert in digital forensics, who will come and present this topic for you so that you learn from the actual expert in the industry, right? So this is the program and these are the topics that we cover. We hope you make use of this experiential program, okay? And I hope to see most of you in the session.
Just to add to Venkatesh sir's point, I've had the privilege to interview him around cloud security, and in a span of around 45 to 50 minutes, from knowing nothing about cloud security, there was quite a great deal of information that I personally learned during my interview with him, as well as the slide. And believe me, the experience that you've got from Mr. Venkatesh Jagulingam from today's presentation is just a bit of like a teaser of what you'll actually learn in depth through our boot camps. And that is applicable across all our experts. So I'd request you guys to just push in the link and just check to see what contents we provide, because it's an extensive 360-degree purview about not one or two things, but almost the important ones. And just to add to Venkatesh's point, that to master cloud security, it is essential for us to have the foundation. We are helping you build that foundation in a very professional way that enhance your networking knowledge and the cloud security knowledge. Because at the end of the day today, as during the pandemic stage and from the work from home environment, cloud is essential. And if you have the building blocks in place, cloud security, you will be able to master a career out of it, right? Thanks for that. So you guys, if you have any question and answers, you guys can ask, sir, or we could just pick some from the chat.
Right. So I think there are quite a few questions. I think it will be good to start from the beginning. For folks, I have already posted the link that Kaushik had talked about. Do check it out. We have a special prize going on for folks who are attending this session. I know you guys have taken time out on a weekend and attended it. So there are some special offer going on for you guys as well. So do have a look at the program and sign up, and our counselor will definitely reach out to you. Let's get to the questions. Venkatesh, I think the first question is from Animesh he's working as a consultant at one of the big four, and he wants to understand which certification to obtain for AWS and GCP.
Okay, just one moment. I think the Q&A session is better done with video. Let me enable my video. let actually people see the face so that they gain the confidence that they are actually talking to a person, right?
Sounds good. Yes.
So,
I'll also turn on my video.
I didn't enable the video because I wanted people to focus on the content. Now that we are done with the session, I think we can go with the video. Right?
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So the first question is actually from 1 minute. Okay, who had the question?
Animesh
Yeah.
Mishra. Yeah.
Yeah, Animesh Mishra. Okay. I think there are 2 questions I guess from him, or 3 questions. Okay. I'm looking as a. Okay. So, Animesh, you are already working as a consultant in cybersecurity, right? You know that cybersecurity itself is a very vast domain, right? And you need to first decide which area you want to focus on. So it can be IAM, it can be threat management or SOC or GRC. There are different areas available. So first you decide which area you want to focus on. And I'm assuming you have chosen cloud security as an career choice or as an area that you want to focus on. So what you should first do when it comes to cloud security is that there are 2 approaches to it. One is you can go for a vendor neutral certification, something like CCSK, Certificate of Cloud Security Knowledge, or CCSP, Certified Cloud Security Professional from ISC2, right? So those are 2 certifications that are available from the industry. That is vendor agnostic. They do not have any affiliation with any specific cloud vendor, right? That is one way of doing certifications. The other way is to specialize in a cloud provider themselves, right? So for example, you can specialize in AWS or you can specialize in Azure or Google or something, right? So all these providers or all these major hyperscalers provide a lot of different certifications, starting from foundational certificate to a cloud engineer, cloud developer, and then you have cloud network engineer, cloud security engineer, and so on and so forth. And all of them have equivalent certifications. So what I would recommend you to do is first start with the cloud foundation, start as a cloud engineer or something. First learn what cloud is, what are the different components are there in the cloud, in a cloud provider of your choice, right? Like if your organization wants you to work on AWS, you can choose AWS. Or if your organization wants you to work on GCP, choose GCP, right? And it's up to you, or what is the immediate requirement that your organization has, so you can do that, right? But if you want to specialize on security, there are 3 certifications available from each of the players, right? So Google has a professional cloud security engineer certification, and Amazon has AWS certified security specialty, and then Azure has Azure security engineer, right? So these are the 3 security specific solutions or certifications that are available. Okay, so that is what I would recommend you to take. MS500, it's AZ500 actually. For Azure, it is AZ500. For GCP, it is called Professional Cloud Security Engineer. And then for AWS, it is called AWS Security Specialty Security. It's a specialty certification, which means you have to do a cloud developer or cloud engineer certification first, and then you can do the specialty. So that's the first question. The next question is, ISACA offers a course, goes by the name CCSP, and yeah, okay. So I think I answered this question already, I guess. So start with CCSK, right? It is done by an organization called Cloud Security Alliance. They are the ones who set the standards for the cloud environment. And Cloud Security Alliance is formed by a lot of major organizations in the world, including the cloud providers, right? So they offer a certification called CCSK, I think Certificate of Cloud Security Knowledge. It's an open book exam. So you can imagine how tough it will be, right? You can refer whatever you want. Internet is available, book is available. You can do whatever you want, but you have to answer within the time, right? So unless you know the topic, you will not be able to clear it. So it's a very tough exam, CCSK. That is the starting point, right? So that was the first cloud certification that came into being. Then CSA and ISC2, it is not ISACA, okay? CSA and ISC2 worked together to come up with the certification called CCSP, Certified Cloud Security Professional, right? So the first step is CCSK, the second step is CCSP. both of it requires some amount of practical experience in cloud. So before you take the certification, if you're already working in the industry, I would say like gain some amount of experience in the cloud environment and then take up the exam. If you're a student, you don't have a choice. You have to learn and then you have to take the exam, I guess. Okay. So that would be my recommendation. CCSK is the foundation, followed by CCSP if you want to go for a vendor neutral certification. But if you are already in a job where you are working for a customer or your organization is asking you to work on some specific cloud environment, then do that specific cloud environment directly. Okay. Right. To what role should traditional IT administrator move when company moves from on-prem to cloud? Okay. This is a very challenging question, Ram, because a lot of the traditional roles that we used to do is actually merging, right? So if you look at earlier, we used to have distinct roles, right? Like you used to have administrators, computer system administrators, like you have Windows administrators, Linux administrators, DB administrators, and then you had your network engineers, security engineers separately, right? But with the migration to cloud, everything has become a software, everything has become a code, right? So now everybody is expected to learn everything. So when you do a cloud foundation engineer course, you will learn network, you will learn security, you will learn data, you will learn administration. Okay. So what I would really suggest you to do is think, where do you want to go to, right? Like you have been a traditional IT administrator, that is good, but move to an adjacent area or a related area that we can immediately work on, right? So that would be my suggestion. If you are like, let's say a Unix administrator, right? So maybe you can try to become a Kubernetes administrator or a container administrator, right? Because that is where we see a lot of traction, a lot of opportunities are there. Like people are looking for people who know and manage Kubernetes or containers platform, right? Like OpenShift or Kubernetes or Azure container platform, or there are a lot of container platforms that are available, right? You can do a CKAD certification if you want, right? Kubernetes administrative professional or something. So there are options available. You can, if you want to pursue that career of I am an administrator, I want to be in administration, you can look at that. Otherwise, you can try to learn other skills and move to other area also, right? So that is something that you can do. Okay. Next question. Okay. Okay. The next question is from Vaibhav Sharma. As a non-technical grad, should I pursue a career in cloud security? What are the challenges will I face if I opt for it? Okay. It is really up to you as an individual, Vaibhav. Okay. Anybody can learn any skill or any technique, right? I myself started my career as a functional tester, right? I was not a technical person. I was never a programmer, right? But now I am a specialist. I'm an expert in cloud security, right? That came through hours and hours of learning and practice, right? So if you're really up for it, if you really made up your mind, I think you can pursue any skill. Not only in cloud security, you can go for cybersecurity or data science or developer or any role for that matter, right? In IT, and you can definitely succeed. It entirely depends on your level of interest and your commitment towards that, right? You can definitely do it. So if you have made up your mind, I would definitely request you to invest in yourself, learn. There are a lot of learning resources available in the internet for you to learn. Some are free, some are paid. So invest in yourself, and I don't think you will regret it. If you are genuinely putting the effort and if you are really confident about yourselves, I think you can definitely succeed. Could you also please explain how privacy by design work in DevOps? Okay, privacy by design, there are two concepts, like one is security by design, the other one is privacy by design, right? So privacy by design means when you design your application or architecture, you ensure that you put controls in place such that the privacy of the customer is protected. So for example, your customer is giving your name, phone number, address, email address. right? Like, so you have your physical address, you have your email address, you have your phone number, you have the customer name. So you exactly know who the person is, right? Now, this is the functionality of the application, right? So the customer has given it. But for people who are administering the application, who are administrators or other people who are looking at the application, they don't need to see this data all the time, right? So what you can do is, in the UI of the application, you can mask this data. The data will be there, but by default, it will not be shown, right? So that is one way of you protecting the privacy of the customer, right? And then you have specific data roles. Only when people have the specific data role, they can see the data in an unmasked condition. They can see my full address, my full phone number, or my full email address, right? But otherwise, there is no need for them to see my full email address, right? So that is one example of privacy by design. There are multiple security controls that you can put, or multiple design principles that you can follow to enable security by design, privacy by design. So that's how it typically works. And that has got nothing to do with DevOps, right? So DevOps is just one method of delivering software into production. But security by design and privacy by design can be done for all other models. You have waterfall, agile, and iterative, and all the other variations available under the roof. Okay. Okay. The next question is from Samyak Jain. I'm a fresher. I have cybersecurity experience. Could you explain me the roadmap for a cloud security engineer? Okay. Samyak, I think you're contradicting yourself. You are saying you are a fresher and you have cybersecurity experience. So I'm not sure which one is true. Yeah. Okay. So the roadmap for cloud security engineer is that most of the organizations are moving to cloud. So cloud security engineer is definitely a very good career choice if you are trying to pursue that. Like I told earlier, you can go the route of vendor agnostic certification to prove your knowledge, or you can specialize in a product or in a cloud provider like AWS or Amazon or Azure or Google, right? So, and then you can opt for a role in that area, right? So that is what I would recommend. Start with if you are a fresher, what I would recommend is that start with one particular product, right? The other vendors also have similar capabilities and similar features, though there are minor differences. If you specialize in one, you'll be able to work in other cloud environments with relative ease, right? So I would request you to choose any cloud provider for that matter, AWS or Azure or Google. It's up to you, right? I don't have a personal preference. I chose to do Google because my organization had got into a partnership with them. They wanted to make a lot of investment in that area. So I started with Google, and then I moved on to AWS, and I am actually now preparing for a Azure certification as well. Okay. The next question is from Suraj Chambare. I have experience of 2.5 years in non-technical, but my interest topic is cybersecurity. What do I do? And I already have done CCNA, MCSA, and Red Hat Linux. Okay. So Suraj, the certifications that you have done are related to network and administration, right? That is just one portion of cybersecurity, right? So I'm not sure if you had a chance to attend the previous masterclass session by Dr. Ram, where he had explained what are the different domains in cybersecurity and what are the different activities that we do in that cybersecurity domain, right? So what you should do is first you should find an area that would work for you. You are telling you are non-technical. So I don't think you might be able to do a topic like penetration testing or application security testing and all, right? But you might be able to do some other activities in cybersecurity, right? So you have to first understand what are the different areas available in cybersecurity, what are the different domains available in cybersecurity, and where you think you'll be able to fit in, and where you think you will do what you do, right? Because if you just get into cybersecurity because everyone says cybersecurity is good, I don't think it will work for you. You really have to have a passion for cybersecurity. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for you to survive in the cybersecurity or IT in general, right? So whatever domain or whatever topic you choose, make sure it is your passion, so that you endure the difficulties and challenges you face and then survive in that. Right? Like, otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you to survive and grow. So my suggestion to you is first find out what are the different topics in cybersecurity domain and pick a topic that you think you will fit in and that you think you would be interested in, and then start building on that particular area, right? If cloud security is your choice, I think we have already discussed what you can do and how you can do. But there are other areas also, right? Like, so you can have identity and access management, penetration testing, you can have GRC, you can have threat intelligence, security operations center. There are a lot of different roles, a lot of different activities that we do in cybersecurity. You have to really choose it for yourself. I unfortunately cannot choose it for you. Okay. Okay. The next question is from Chaitanya. Chaitanya asks, as a freshly graduated person, what path we should choose to get into cloud security. Okay. All right. So Chaitanya, I think I pretty much answered this question, right? So if you are a fresher, what I would rather focus on is learning the cloud itself first, right? Forget about cloud security. You should first learn cloud. What is cloud? What are the different components that are there? What are the things that you can do and you cannot do in cloud? You should have that understanding first. So first learn cloud, right? Do a foundation course or do a fundamental certification in cloud, right? Something like cloud developer or cloud engineer sort of certifications from these major players, and then get into cloud security. Because for you to do cloud security, you should know cloud. Okay, that is very, very important. So my suggestion to you would be to start with cloud foundational course and then move to cloud security. Okay. The next question is from Aditya Bansal. I have completed training courses on GCP security and now learning AWS security. Is paid certification really required for me to get a job as a fresher? Okay. It is not a mandatory thing, Aditya. This question is from Aditya Bansal. So Aditya, the certification is not a mandatory thing. Okay. If you're able to demonstrate your knowledge, people can choose you. But what having a certification will help you, because let's say like you are a fresher. If somebody is going through your profile, right? They are going through 10 profiles and all the profile says I've learned cloud, right? But if you show that you have certification, which means you've proved your knowledge already, right? So that gives you that small edge in getting your profile selected for an interview. That's the only advantage you get, right? The moment you get into the interviewer will figure out whether you know cloud or not, or cloud security or not, irrespective of what you say, whether you have certification or not, right? So where it can provide a little edge is that if you say you are a certified professional, there is a slightly higher chance of your profile getting selected. Okay. But considering you are a fresher, it should not make a big difference, but having that slight edge will help you, right? So that's why certifications are good in case of a fresher, if you're really doing that. Even otherwise, I think if you're able to explain the concepts and technically prove that you know how to do it, I don't think certification is necessary as a fresher. Okay. All right. The next question is from Tushar. I'm working as a pen tester. I'm having 4 years of experience in application security. How should I proceed with cloud security domain and DevSecOps? Okay. So Tushar, if you want to pursue your career in penetration testing, there are a lot of penetration testing related certifications that are available, right? Which you can work on. You have one from OSCP, right? Like offensive security certified professional, right? So that is one certification that you can look at. You have OSWE, offensive security web expert. So those are two interesting certificates for penetration testing. You also have other generic penetration testing certifications like CH practical and all. You can do that. If you want to focus on cloud security is slightly different from penetration testing. If you want to learn cloud security, you have to go through what is cloud and then learn cloud security. So the process is pretty much the same for you as well, right? Like, because If you do not know what cloud is, you have to first learn what cloud is, what are the different modules or applications that are there in the cloud, and you should be able to do that. And then once you understand that, then you will understand how to secure those elements. So that's how I would ask you to work on cloud security domain. For DevSecOps, I think because you're already working on application security, I think you would already be experiencing DevSecOps. What you can do is most of the organizations, what now they do is they integrate the security in the pipeline, right? So like they integrate SAST tools or DAST tools into the pipeline. So whenever a build is made, whenever a build is published in the SCM, right? The Jenkins or any other integration CI tool can take the file and then you can run it through the pipeline, right? So as part of that, you can run your SAS scans and DAS scans and then start working on the application security. So DevSecOps is more towards application security. So I think DevSecOps is more closer to you than cloud security. If you really want to learn DevSecOps, that is what I would request you to do. Like learn about these tools, learn about how CI/CD pipeline works. You can set up a CI/CD pipeline yourself and then try to do it, right? There are courses also available. Something I think Azure offers Azure DevOps Engineer or AWS DevOps Engineer or something. So you can try to do those courses that will cover these elements, right? So the DevOps will cover DevSecOps also. Most of the organization do, so you can do that. Okay. Okay. The next question is from Chandan. I'm already working as a SOC analyst. How useful this course will be with respect to my career, and how deep the course will be in terms of technical, and will the course contain enabled tools and exposure to it in terms of all contents mentioned in the course. Okay. So Chandan, I cannot comment on the threat intelligence or the SOC area that you're asking about. In terms of the what content they are going to present or what tool they are going to present, right? I will let Kaushik or somebody else answer that question. But
sure.
Yeah,
Kaushik,
yeah.
So Chandan, just to answer, SOC is majorly around operations, and cybersecurity is a field wherein you also need to have just not only the knowledge of operations, but also the non-operation side of it, which includes your build and the design part of it. So when it comes to the entire cybersecurity domains that we are offering, starting from every specific topic that we're reaching, there are going to be real world tools that will be covered, from the very basic of Kali Linux tools to specific domain related tools like for network security. We'll be teaching about Wireshark, Nmap, Etacap. Then similarly for web application security, we're going to be covering about Burp Suite, OWASP, ZAP. Similarly for digital forensics, we'll be covering Autopsy, Foremost, Encase, GHEX. So these tools are going to be specific for every domain, that these are just not going to be conceptual learning wherein you're going to get your hands dirty with every single tool, followed by extensive projects and report assessments. So I can assure you the content is pretty much in depth for every specific topic that we're going to be teaching.
Yeah. And in terms of how this course in general will help you, Chandan, is that like as Kaushik pointed out, right now you're focusing on SOC, so your focus is on operation center, incidents, event management, and response, red team, blue team, those kind of areas, right? But if you do this course, you will learn the other elements of cybersecurity as well, right? And especially cloud security is very important because being a SOC analyst, you should monitor every asset in the network, irrespective of whether it is an on-premise network or in cloud, right? So if you're going to monitor the assets in cloud, if you're going to integrate your CM tools like your ArcSight or Splunk or Cmplify or any of those tools, then you definitely need to have a good understanding of the cloud environment, right? And nowadays, what happens is the cloud provider themselves are providing CM tools. The latest example is Azure Sentinel, right? So Azure is providing a tool called Sentinel, which is nothing but a cloud CM tool for monitoring the security information and events in the cloud environment, right? So if you really want to learn those things, I think this course would help you. Cloud security in general will help you, and the cybersecurity course experiential program covers like many other topics as well, right? So as a SOC analyst, I think digital forensics is another area that is adjacent to your skill, which you can learn, which can help you in identifying the any major breach or hack that's happening, and you'll be able to locate it much faster, right? So that is one area that you can definitely learn. And obviously there are other areas as well, which will give you a more well-rounded knowledge and experience around cybersecurity. So that's how this course can help you. Okay. All right. Samyak Jain, AWS practitioner, is worth for getting a job in India as a fresher. Okay, so it depends on what kind of job you are going for, whether you're going for a developer or big. What AWS practitioner tells you is that you know cloud, you know what are the different modules or components that are there in AWS cloud platform, right? You just know the products theoretically, and you might get some practical experience. Okay, but how efficiently can you use it? Can you design an AWS solution? Comes with a lot of experience. So what AWS practitioner tells you is that you are very familiar with the AWS environment and you have experience in AWS environment. So that gives you that edge, right, over other candidates as a fresher, right? If you say I am certified, okay, this person has knowledge and he or she has proved his knowledge by taking up a certification. That gives you that small edge in getting your profile selected for an interview. That's the only advantage that you get as a fresher. Okay, and I don't think having a certification as a fresher is a mandatory requirement for people to hire. Okay, if you really want to make a difference, what you can do is you can demonstrate your skill in whatever area you are working on, right? Like be it software development or security or anything for that matter. Show that you have knowledge, you have passion, like build an application, and then in the interview that you have, show them the application that you have built, right? Or if you are passionate about security, like say for example, you can participate in a bug crowd kind of a bug bounty programs and then report vulnerabilities in real world applications, right? And then you tell them, okay, hey, I'm passionate about penetration testing, not security testing. I have participated in bug bounty, and here is what I've reported, right? Facebook rewarded me for 3 defects, or Google rewarded me for 5 defects or something. Proves your credibility, right? And you have a very high chance of getting selected if you are able to show that passion and then demonstrate your knowledge even before somebody hires you, right? That is how you can make a difference. If you wait for your company to provide you everything, I don't think it's going to work. Okay, the next question is from Judge. In these days, all companies wanted to have experienced person in cloud, and no one is ready to give an opportunity to a person who just finished his certification. How could we overcome this problem? Okay, even they look for an architect person in the cloud. Okay, so Judge, I am not sure what kind of a profile you have, like what kind of other skills you have, whether you're a developer or a tester or a cybersecurity engineer. I have no idea, right? Always be patient. That's all I can tell you right now, right?
I think he's given IT operation as his domain.
IT operations. Okay, yeah. So okay, the entire operations world, right, is going for a upside like a upside down shift. Okay, and you spending time in cloud will definitely help you, because the just simply the scale of demand that we see in the cloud environment is huge. Okay, even if your current organization does not recognize you or does not acknowledge your effort, continue to upskill yourself. Okay, and if you are able to continuously upskill and then prove your knowledge, if your current company doesn't recognize it, some other company will definitely recognize it in the future. Okay, so don't give up hope. You can definitely upskill your knowledge and then always look for an opportunity outside your current company, right? So if sincerely try within your company, if they are not ready to accept it, if they are not ready to support you, then all I can say is look for an opportunity outside the company. Right? Wherever people recognize your skill and respect your skill and then utilize your skill, I think you should be there. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, Venkatesh, in terms of questions.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have covered the question, and I think I went overboard, I guess.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think I went over 20 minutes. Sorry.
No worries. I'm glad that you were able to take out the time. And once again, thanks a ton for spending the Saturday afternoon with folks on this session. Sure. I think it was extremely useful from both the content, the overview on cloud security, and also I think a lot of questions came around the career related
Yeah,
aspect.
correct,
Right?
correct.
I think that also you were able to guide folks on how to navigate that. I think it was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
We will share a feedback form to all the attendees, so that guys, please give feedback on how you like this session, what we can improve, and also we will share the recorded session on email. You can check it out on antwork.com/events. We will get it uploaded soon. Uh, any other questions, follow up, you guys have, you can always reach us at support@antwork.com. Once again, Venkatesh, glad you were able to take time. It was a fantastic session. You were able to guide a lot of people in both the content and their career. So thank you once again, and looking forward to the bootcamp sessions, I think, where you will be going in a lot more detail. Do check out the Antwork cybersecurity program, guys. I've already shared the link on the chat. And if you guys are interested in creating a career in cybersecurity, do sign up. It's a fantastic program where we have lined up some of the best experts like Venkatesh, Dr. Ram, people from Symantec, Infosys, who have been working in the cybersecurity space for quite some time. And they will be giving you, like Kaushik said, a very hands-on approach to cybersecurity rather than just learning the theory and frameworks. And it is a complete live program, close to 75 to 100 hours of live sessions, interactive sessions. Also, the interesting thing here is we'll not only focus just on the cybersecurity aspect, but we'll also focus on the softer aspects of how to be a successful professional, whether it is communication, negotiation strategies, presentation, and so on. A lot of that is also equally important in today's world. So do check out the program, apply on the link, and one of us will reach out to you and guide you better. Thank you once again, Venkatesh, for the time. Thanks everyone for attending this session and being patient and being here for almost 90 minutes on a Saturday afternoon. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.